Happy Monday, everyone. It's Frank Ticas dropping knowledge coming at you once again. A little bit of a message, a little bit of knowledge. Hoping you're having an excellent Monday, excellent start of the week. Just want to thank everyone that's been watching my videos, hitting the like on my videos, commenting, and engaging with me on my videos. All the new subscribers and everyone that's been subscribed to the channel, I appreciate you. I'm just watching the growth, little by little. It impacts me. It helps me motivate to get motivated to put out more content, which is what I'm doing now. I'm working on some shorts, hopefully putting those out there by tonight or by early this afternoon. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, I wanted to drop this video, just talk a little bit. Yeah, I think it might sound like I'm rambling, but I hope at the end of the video the message is clear, right? And talk about the untold story. Untold story. What is an untold story? Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Something that hasn't been told for whatever reason. Whether it's because it was a forgotten event, it just slipped the mind, fell out of the consciousness of our awoke minds, um, and no one remembers, no one else remembers, so maybe that's why no one talks about it. But more than likely, the case would be that people just choose not to talk about it um, for whatever reason, and maybe even were sworn to secrecy to as to not talk about it. And if one, two, or more people are involved and know about this, that's a lot of engagement, right? That's a lot of trust you have to put out there that no one is ever going to talk about a situation that you're supposed to not talk about. You've got untold stories that come out in the form of conspiracy theories. Now, I'll entertain a good conspiracy theory. It has to make sense. There has to be some historical backing because I do check on stuff like that. Other stuff is just outlandish. But hey, look, even outlandish um, conspiracy theories in the past turned out to be true. So, I'll entertain some. If they're too crazy, I'll just wait on them. I'm not gonna entertain something that sounds too like far-fetched. I'll just wait. I'll wait or I'll do my research. If I don't have anything additional to it, then I'll wait. I won't even consider it. Now, yeah, we have a lot of things that go on untold, right? Throughout history, I'm sure that there are more untold stories than there have been people, more untold situations than there are living, breathing human beings. And it's because as humans, we live through so many situations in our lifetime. Just think about the past week, how many things you felt, how many things you said, how many things you did. A lot of that you might not ever talk about ever again. So, it remains untold. But there are those things, and that's what I'm going to get to, that people actively don't want to talk about or have been told not to talk about because of the repercussions. Whether the repercussions are bad, whether the repercussions are criminal, whether the repercussions affect an image, affect a belief, or a previously believed fact that now turns out is a lie. Things are being withheld for many different reasons, right? And like I said, many could be conspiracy theories. The government is very active in trying to keep their thumb on whatever is released out to the general public. Makes sense. There's a lot of sensitive stuff, a lot of secret stuff, but then there's also a lot of corruption, a lot of things that go on behind closed doors that none of us is a stranger to, right? Enough has come out to light enough times in so many different administrations in so many different countries throughout history that it's not surprising. And if we all, focused our shift to Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli, he kind of wrote a book on that, right? So it is what it is. There are things that people choose not to talk about because it may ruin an image, it may destroy lives, right? It may cause deaths. So, they're kept under wraps for as long as they're able to keep them under wraps. Now, obviously these people are human just like we're human. And since we're human, we also have a lot of stories that are untold. Right? There's a lot of stuff that we've done or haven't done, right? Or a lot of things that we've said we've done, but maybe the reality is that we haven't done any of them. That's the untold story in that case where you're like, hey, the untold story here is that I'm just faking the funk. Yeah, you didn't know that one, right? You didn't expect that untold story. Yeah, I'm faking the funk. So yeah, there's people out there faking the funk, and the untold story will eventually be that that's exactly what they're doing. Some are very open about it, and it's like pretty obvious. Others, if you let them tell it, they'll tell you that they were the breaking news of, crypto, losing its value before everyone knew it was going to lose value. Or you'll have people, reinventing criminal psychology, right? I mean, things have always happened. There have always been things that have been kept under wraps. That will continue to happen as long as human beings rule the earth. That will continue to happen. And we ourselves have a lot of untold stories that we also keep tightly under wraps for some of the same reasons. I mean, it could be some serious stuff that, if it was put out there, might even cause deaths. Like, we've seen crimes of passion. Doesn't necessarily have to be a criminal thing, right? Imagine if you knew that the wife of someone that you know is very violent was cheating on them, or vice versa. Maybe the guy was cheating and the woman's very violent, right? And you know that their first thought would be, grabbing a firearm and see what goes on from there. Now, you're not going to tell anyone of that nature something that might set them off, right? If you're looking for the general good of your family, of their family, and all of these things, and this may be a type of untold story that you take to the grave, right? And there may be other people that are in on that story that have all sworn to secrecy because they know that the outcome would be disastrous. It happens, right? Sometimes it's not that serious. It might not be life or death, but it might end a relationship. It might end a business deal, right? There's so many consequences to unknown or untold stories that we can only imagine. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. The untold story. Like I already said, they can come in the form of conspiracy theories, and just things that we don't want to talk about because they're either embarrassing or they might incriminate us. Yeah, it could be criminal, like an actual criminal incrimination, but it could also be just a situation where maybe you have convinced people that you weren't responsible for something that was really kind of fucked up or affected them, and you were able to convince them, no, I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't able to stop that. But in the back of your mind that it was negligence, or that maybe you didn't think it was going to be that bad, but you did provoke it. That might be an untold story, right? That might be something that's not, yeah, you wouldn't be willing to share. And that you might even pressure people not to talk about, right? If you know that they know. Now, that's why you have NDAs and so many things in the more professional settings that I think, in amongst us regular people come out in the form of threats, right? It's like, oh, if you talk about this, I'm gonna get you, right? So, there are hood type NDAs out there where the consequences are not legal, they might be extrajudicial. So that's why, it's very important. And, one of the things that I hear out there by some of these hypocrites is like, yeah, the FBI is watching. They're watching all our channels. But yet they're constantly talking names and mentioning things that happen. Some stories need to be left untold. Some stories don't need to come out to the light of day. And then there are stories that maybe have already come out, and the story is dying down. It's being covered up, by time. But then other people come back and redig it up, throw it out there. Now with the dirt and everything that comes with it, they just are messy with past situations that have already been hashed and rehashed, right? And some people are just messy like that. They want to keep the pot stirring. They want to keep stirring the pot, just to get some attention, just to get some clicks and views. But there's stuff that should be let die down. Now, how many times are you going to tell us who your victim was, and that they ratted on you, and constantly parading your victim out there. Like, that should not be a story that keeps being told every 3 months in a different package or whenever you get drunk, right? If you didn't catch it, it's a direct message, right? Some stories should be left untold. Or if they've already been told enough, we need to stop talking about them. But then there are others that maybe are embarrassing, maybe are incriminating, but need to come out to light for the greater good. Which is what we're seeing with the whole Epstein thing, right? That's a cover up. I mean, that's a conspiracy. But it's real time. We're watching it, like we're watching it while it happens. Some people will take one side, some people will take another side. But the fact is that there is a cover up. They'd rather release the victims' names than the people that are actually the perpetrators. Okay, and that's a fact. That's not me being political. That's just what's happening. That's what's going on. You can make up a lot of reasons for that to be happening, but that's exactly what is happening, and that was not the promise, right? So yeah, so you see these things happening. So it's obvious that all of us, every single one of us, to a greater or lesser extent, has things that we don't want to talk about. And like I said, it might not even be incriminating. It might just be embarrassing. You know? So and I want to, it's like, and I'll give you guys an example of that with me. All right, when I was like around what, like 14, 15, I was already out there. I was already doing my stuff. I was already, like about to drop out of, well, I had already kind of dropped out of high school. So I was just going to the high school and meeting up with friends and doing things like that. Like, with my girlfriend at the time and her friend who became very close, like almost like a sister to me. And it was all good because, we all got along very well. Yeah, but I was already out there acting tough, trying to put on this tough guy persona. I was a skinny kid, little kid, but I didn't care. I was gonna act tough, and I was gonna make sure people saw that I was a tough guy, right? Because like I said in the earlier video, if you're out there on the street till late night, you don't want people to think you're weak, and you're not gonna be weak. You're gonna be strong, right? So that's where I was at. Like I was leveling up in that aspect. And then one day, this homegirl, she invites. Well, I would go to her house. Like sometimes I would go to her house to like just wait until it got dark and I could then go out and chill with the homies. So I would go to her house. We would kick it. She would feed me. Yeah, so she was really good. She would make hominy with butter, little salt, and we would watch movies. And she told me like, "Hey, let's watch a movie." And she put on The Color Purple, and it made me cry like a little bitch. Like, and I will never say it. Like I would never tell that. I never told that to any of my friends. I never talked about it. Imagine me being in with my celly or walking around on the yard talking about, yeah, when I saw The Color Purple, man, it made me cry. I was crying like a little bitch. Like, what the fuck is right? These are things that at that age, and then for a time, I didn't feel like, not maybe not comfortable with talking about it. Like I could talk about it, but I knew that around the circumstances I was in, it wasn't appropriate. But my homegirl knew, right? Because she was right there bawling with me. But we were cool, like, and she's like, don't trip. I know, like, and she's like, I kind of wanted you to do that because that's the whole point. Sometimes I see that you're always frustrated. I'm like, yeah, man. It was like a big release for me. Right? Sometimes you can walk around with your fists clenched for so long until one day you just gotta let go. You gotta release all that pressure. And I think that's what happened to me that day. It was a combination of things. But I knew that I wasn't gonna tell my friends that, hey, you know what, I watched this movie, man, it made me cry. I did recommend the movie, but I didn't tell them it made me cry, right? I didn't tell them that I was, wow, like, boogers coming out, it's like snot. Like, I was terrible. And I'm not a fan of Oprah Winfrey, man, but her character in The Color Purple, the original Color Purple, if you've seen the new one, you need to go watch the old one, okay? Because to me that was the best to me, right? Miss Celie and cursing, right? But Oprah Winfrey's part in that movie was, to me, was what stole the show. But anyways, there are things that we don't talk about because we don't want to be looked upon as weak. We don't want to be looked upon as though we're soft, right? And it's just because that's human nature. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. But I do think that there are stories that have to be shared that might help others, right? And for example, this video and this particular thing that I've told you guys, me crying like a little bitch watching The Color Purple, is because I know a lot of guys want to put up a front sometimes that they can't show weakness or they can't show a more soft side of them. And sometimes they've got kids. No, and they don't want their kids to get too close, or they're not caring or loving or tender with their children. Man, you gotta love your kids, and you gotta show them that it's okay to demonstrate emotions. Like demonstrating emotions is not a weakness, that's a strength. If you can intelligently articulate what you're feeling, what your thought process is at a moment of crisis or of sadness, or even at a moment of joy, being able to control it but express it in a way that's positive, that's constructive, and that doesn't hurt others, that's the strength. Like that's what's going to connect you to people. People would rather see a flawed hero than someone that's infallible, like never commits a mistake. Like I've heard that. Like I've heard that from Dubs. I've never made a mistake. I never messed up. I never. Like what are you talking about? You've got your untold story, man. You guys got your untold stories out there. Now, some of them we got to keep under wraps. But if there are stories that can help your children or your loved ones, and that might even bring you closer to people, work it out, work it within yourself, talk about it to yourself, write it out, read it out, think about it. Like I even redid this video once before just to make sure that the message was clear. Because the idea here with my channel, apart from trolling and pointing out the weirdos, is being able to give you something to work with as well, right? I used to get all sensitive when I would see like, those for the price of a cup of coffee, and I was a kid watching that on TV, and I was little, I felt empathy, and I realized that that was something that I lost along the way. I lost the ability to feel. I lost the ability of seeing something and having it move me. So in this process that I'm on with peeling the layers back, that's where I want to get. And for all of you guys talking about Christ this and Christ that, and all you do is judge, you need to realize that what Jesus said was you got to be like children, right? And how was I when I was a child? I was sensitive. I was a sensitive guy. I could sense if someone was sad. If my mom was tired, I would go and hug her, and I would try to rub her back. I didn't know how to massage, but I was a little kid, and I saw that. I was able to sense it. My mom didn't have to tell me. That gets lost when you're trying to be hard, when you're trying to move away from things that make you feel soft, that make you feel weak. We have to start embracing a lot of that. We have to start remembering what it was to feel, what it was to have actual feelings and thoughts, not have them be filtered through this hard persona all the time. Having said that, I hope the message was clear. I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday, an excellent week. Please continue praying for the people in Mexico, for that situation, and just for everyone the world over. We're all going through trying times. Sometimes we just need to get close to God and say a few prayers. And having said that, guys, until next time, peace.